This is Block 9, the Liberal Establishment, Section 5, the Cold War outside of Vietnam, with the section, the Helsinki Accords. 1975, this is the work of President Ford and many other people around the world. President Ford continued Nixon's policies of détente. In July of 1975, he attended a meeting of nearly 40 nations in neutral Finland. Finland was neutral between the United States and the Soviet Union, and several sets of agreements were signed. One of the strangest of them was the fact that World War II finally ended. That the borders that the Soviet Union had kind of drawn for itself in Eastern Europe after World War II were finally and formally recognized internationally, especially the borders of Poland that had been drawn up at the Yalta Conference. They had never been formally accepted, and they were at the Helsinki Conference in 1975. More importantly, what did the Soviets kind of give up in exchange for that? The Soviets agreed to increase the amount of people and information that could pass between itself and the West. That the Soviet Union in 1975 is starting a little teeny tiny bit to crack itself open to outside influence and influence from around the world. That students could now travel to Moscow kind of on semester abroad type things. There was cultural exchanges that, the Russian ballet came to the United States. American performers could perform in the Soviet Union. And it's just those little sorts of things that, allow better relations between countries. Most importantly of all, the Soviets agreed to protect certain basic human rights. That even, Brezhnev is not Stalin, obviously, but the Soviet Union was still obviously not a free place. There was political dissidents, there was political jails, the Gulag was still in operation. One of the favorite things that the Soviets would do to you in the 70s and 80s if they didn't like you, they wouldn't put a bullet in your head, they wouldn't put you even necessarily in a work camp, they'd just stick you in a mental hospital. That if you disagreed with the government, that was obviously a sign of mental disease, and they would just put you away in a psychiatric ward, which of course is not a very pleasant place to be if you're not crazy. But the Soviets signed these Helsinki Accords, and it would become a tool for the West to beat the Soviet Union around the head about its human rights violations when its human rights violations continued unabated. That the Soviets continued violating people's human rights left, right, and center, but now the United States and the West kind of had a tool with which to beat them on the head with it. You better follow the Helsinki Accords or we're going to cut off grain, became something that, you could say after they had signed these accords. It's a sign of détente, it's a sign of softening tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. At first glance, it's a good thing, but in the late 70s, as America is reeling from its defeat in Vietnam, from the oil crisis, and from Jimmy Carter's presidency, where the United States does not look strong, does not look powerful, the Soviets are going to try to take advantage of that. That don't mistake détente for peace. They are not the same thing. Détente is just a softening of tension. The United States and the Soviet Union still do not like each other much and are still constantly on lookouts for ways to weaken the other. Despite all of these détente type of things.